And welcome back to the show. The Albert Einstein Cancer Center was among the first academic cancer research centers to be funded by the National Cancer Institute, a designation that continuously has been held since 1972. Now, recently, the Albert Einstein Cancer Center has announced the appointment of 3 faculty members to key leadership positions, reflecting the center's commitment to basic science, as well as translational and clinical research, and its core principle of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And joining us now and sharing a little bit more, we've got the director of the Albert Einstein Cancer Center and professor of the Department of Molecular Pharmacology and Department of Medicine at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. We're pleased to be joined by Dr. Edward Chu. And Dr. Chu, thank you so much.
Well, thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you. And so talk to us about here the Albert Einstein Cancer Center and the work that you guys are presently doing.
Yeah, no, thank you. So as you mentioned, the Albert Einstein Cancer Center is one of the oldest cancer centers in the country. I should also say that actually we've been officially renamed. So for 50 plus years, we were known as the Albert Einstein Cancer Center. But now moving forward, we're now known as the Montefiore Einstein Cancer Center. And for me, that was really important to have both the Montefiore and Einstein names in the name of our cancer center to reflect really the complete alignment and tight integration between Einstein, which has always been viewed as kind of the academic and research part of the cancer center, with Montefiore, which really is the clinical arm, healthcare delivery, community outreach engagement piece of the cancer center. So now we have, under the umbrella of the Montefiore Einstein Cancer Center, all of those key pieces. As you mentioned, actually, the Cancer Center was founded by Dr. Harry Eagle, really a very prominent scientist, in 1971, and really an unprecedented time. 1 year later, in 1972, the Cancer Center was given NCI designated status, which is kind of like that good housekeeping seal of approval for cancer centers. And so this year in 2022, we're celebrating our 50th year as an NCI designated cancer center. So being an NCI designated cancer center means that we have really the full spectrum, the breadth and depth of cancer focused research that starts with basic research and then clinical, translational, and population research. So population research is like epidemiology, prevention, control, research that's focused on screening, early detection, and health services, health outcomes research. So, it's interesting, if you turn on the radio, like every morning when I come in from my house in New Rochelle, I always hear about the Blood and Cancer Institute in Long Island. And what's different about an NCI designated cancer center, it really has the breadth and depth of cancer focused research. And there's also education, training, community outreach, engagement, research that's relevant to the local patient population. So for an NCI cancer center, there's really much more comprehensive array of services, if you will, that are provided for our patients.
So in addition to having leadership changes, we also have the appointment of 3 new faculty members. Talk to me about the inclusion of them and why you felt these changes were so important.
Yeah, so great question. So it's interesting. A cancer center, what we call cancer center senior leadership team, is in many ways akin to, I'm a sports fan. And so like the cancer center director is like the coach, right? General manager. And the team is, you have your offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, linebackers coach, whatever. So, even though we're a relatively small cancer center, we actually have 14 senior leaders, each of whom have a specialty area that they have responsibility for. And so we recently had one of our long-standing deputy directors, Dr. Ramon Perez-Solar. He retired at the end of January to go back to his hometown in Barcelona, Spain, after having been deputy director for nearly 20 years. And so I felt it really important to continue to have a deputy director who could work closely with me and my deputy director of administration, Ms. Lauren Hackett, And so I actually promoted Dr. Uli Steidl to that deputy director role. When I first came on board as the Cancer Center director in October 2020, I had appointed Dr. Steidl to be the associate director overseeing basic research. And he's really done a phenomenal job. So he will continue to oversee basic research, basic science at our cancer center, but he'll take on added responsibilities and really kind of be my right-hand man in the cancer center working with Lauren. Dr. Adebola Adedimiji, I appointed at the end, actually it was at the end of December, early January, I appointed him to be the inaugural associate director overseeing diversity, equity, and inclusion. As I'm sure you're aware, diversity, equity, inclusion, which is now known as DEI, has become such an important element for academic institutions, cancer centers, business, right? Almost everything we do, really, there's now a sharpened focus on DEI. And I think in particular, when one looks at the very foundation of Einstein and Montefiore as institutions, there really has been a deep and long-standing commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion. In fact, when Albert Einstein agreed to have his name put on the Einstein College of Medicine, it was on basically the agreement that the individuals accepted into the medical school would be accepted with no discrimination towards race or creed. Obviously, Montefiore, obviously serving the Bronx community, has really had a deep commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion. So Adebola, who is actually originally from the west coast of Africa, he's from Nigeria, and he's been very actively involved in DEI initiatives at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. I thought he would be a natural choice to become our associate director of DEI, as it's called. And really, the overarching mission of our DEI program and the main focal point for Dr. Adedimiji is to create, nurture, and sustain an institutional culture that promotes diversity, equity, inclusion. And then the final leader that I appointed was Dean Hosgood, who has now been appointed the co-leader of the Cancer Epidemiology Prevention and Control Program. So this is our main population science program that looks at the underlying causes, etiologies of cancer, and also tries to understand the social and structural determinants that can contribute to cancer. So Dean is really an ideal person because he's not only an epidemiologist, but he also is very focused on health services, health outcomes, health disparities research.
Yeah.
So these three new leaders are really going to play a very critical role as our cancer center moves forward.
Well, Dr. Shu, as we wind down, I'm going to take your analogy. You're the GM now, right? You got this franchise and you're moving it forward. As that, fans want to know, listen, what can we expect down the line? Are we going to expect a championship this year, or what's going to happen in a few years' time? So give us your perspective as to what we can expect with this new leadership team, with you at the helm, and hopefully what we can look forward to over the short-term future.
Well, so I'd like to think we already have a championship team, and we're building on that. But I think really one of the main priorities for our cancer center, given that we serve the Bronx, which is by far and away the most racially and ethnically diverse patient population in the country, it also is one of the poorest communities in the country. So when I came on board, I charged our leaders, as well as all of our cancer center members, our clinicians and clinical investigators, to really use the Bronx community as the focal point, and for us to understand all aspects relating to cancer. So I believe we can actually should serve as a national model for community outreach engagement and for conducting research that's relevant to the catchment area. I think one of the challenges for a lot of NCI cancer centers around the country, and I came from Pittsburgh, which is also one of the top NCI cancer centers in the country, the vast majority of the centers don't actually deal with minority, underrepresented populations. And I think it's clear that a lot of the genetics and the biology of cancers that are in the minority population may be quite different than what we see in Caucasian white patients. So I believe actually we can really play a critical role in the country for understanding, right, cancer, and then develop new approaches for prevention, screening, early detection, and treatment of our minority populations. So our goal is to continue to build and expand on really, I think, the exceptional strengths of the cancer, but to really take it to an even greater level.
Well, Dr. Chill, I want to congratulate you as things continue to move forward. And Montefiore Einstein Cancer Center, that's a wonderful thing that I think the public will be looking forward to in terms of service, in terms of new leadership, and hopefully some new outcomes. So thank you so much for being with us and sharing a little bit about what's going on.
Well, thanks so much for having me today. It's been a real pleasure.
Definitely. Our pleasure as well. Now, I want our viewers to know, if you do want more information, we encourage you to visit the website. And you can visit the website at einsteinmed.edu. And you can also follow them on Twitter and Instagram at EinsteinMed. Want to encourage you to stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We do have more show coming up. Open continues coming up in a few.